Greetings, YouTube. I believe it was Iris I that asked me about the Drow, everyone's favorite evil subterranean race of elves. There are way too many races of elves. I think we all know that. It's kind of a disease in fantasy world. Now, I was introduced to the Drow in 1st edition, and I'm not sure if it was the A series of modules or the G series of modules. Someone will have to tell me. I used them in 1st edition as another race of evil humanoids. I really didn't flesh them out. I pretty much used them straight as they were introduced in the book. They had a nice exotic flavor, and I thought they were pretty cool. 2nd edition, I used them as well, but they were more in the background. There wasn't as much interaction between the player characters and the Drow directly. Mostly they interacted with some of the Drow artifacts that they found in the subterranean world and were able to successfully bring back to the surface. And of course, Drow artifacts, when exposed to natural sunlight, will be destroyed. So bringing them back to the surface and keeping them around was difficult and made them very valuable. In fact, there was a thief who stole a sealed container from a merchant, knowing it was important and not knowing what it was. And then when he got it back to his residence, he opened it in daylight and watched the Drow fabric inside evaporate into smoke. And one of the actual elves in the party found out, was aghast at his foolishness. The interplay between the two characters was quite amusing. But by the time 3rd edition had rolled around, I had really completely tossed out the idea that any race was inherently evil or good. That all races must be viewed neutrally, and that you have to view them as individuals. There were evil Drow and there were not evil Drow. And I really didn't use Drow much. And when the PCs finally encountered them, I kind of threw a monkey wrench in the process, and I didn't make them black-skinned, white-haired. I made them true albinos. They lived under the earth. They were like cave creatures. Large eyes, which I believe I made black just because I liked the look, but they were completely pigmentless. They had no pigment whatsoever. And one of my player characters commented about James's weird elves, weird Drow. He thought it was strange that the Drow were not black. And I'd come to that conclusion because, frankly, I couldn't really shake the nagging feeling that having an entire race of evil creatures that were all black was somewhat racist. It really tended to smack of the concept that the word black is often associated with negative concepts, while the word white is associated with positive concepts. Go look them up in a good dictionary and you'll see what I mean. So I threw out that idea, and while the Drow culture continued to be very lawful evil in its overall stance, it was very much dog eat dog, every man for himself, militaristic, rigidly hierarchical, with a matriarchy that was in charge. It didn't mean that every member of the Drow itself were going to be. There would be renegades that were neutral and were barely tolerant of their society, or those that were out-and-out rebels. And while the player characters did interact with the Drow a few times, I think only twice, they never really had a chance to interact with them to the point where I actually began to use neutral or good Drow. The campaign just didn't go in that direction. They didn't spend a whole lot of time underground, and when they did, it was interacting with mostly the mushroom people, whose name escapes me now. I think they might have had another name other than the Mushroom Men or something. But there was quite a bit of interaction between the party members and them. I also like using just stranger races. Like I used a race of intelligent salamanders that looked like salamanders. They did not look like humanoids. So I really kind of tossed the whole idea that the Drow were going to be the classic black-skinned, white-haired that were made so famous by Drizzt and his 2 scimitars, which became such a cliche. It's like Drizzt became the fantasy version of Wolverine in comics. Really, he was like he's like everywhere, and he was copied 1,000 times by players all over the world, and it was really, really boring. So I would like to hear how you folks out there have used Drow in your campaign. Did you do anything interesting with them? Have you tossed them out completely and say, I don't want them in my campaign, I think they're silly, I think they're overused? Or do you adhere to the classic first edition Drow? Black skin, white hair, all of them are evil. I want to know.